Housing affordability isn't just a headline anymore. It's a crisis. In a heated exchange on Capitol Hill, Congressman David Scott laid out what many families in Atlanta already know. Homeownership is slipping out of reach. From labor shortages to rising construction costs, from investor-owned homes to zoning barriers. The pressure is building. And now lawmakers are debating whether higher wages, union power, or zoning reform could be the key to unlocking supply. Tonight on America in Focus, we break down what's really driving housing prices and whether Washington has the will to fix it.
Thank the gentlewoman. The chair recognizes the very distinguished gentleman from Georgia. Mr. Scott, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
And thank you, our very special chairman of our committee. Now, Professor Hamilton, I first want to thank you for joining us. But every day, the dream of owning a home in Atlanta slips further out of reach for thousands of families. And in our 2025 Atlanta Regional Commission survey confirms what many already feel. Number one, housing affordability isn't just a talking point anymore. It is the top concern for our constituents, affecting employment, education, and economic stability. And in our Atlanta Regional Survey, the respondents pointed to investors who buy and rent homes as a main cause of this affordability issue. Another major factor cited in this report is rising construction costs from labor shortages, materials, and the availability of land. So, over the last 7 years, the construction workforce in Atlanta has lost 6% of workers aged 25 to 52 years old. And each year we see a shortage of over 700,000 new construction workers. So, Professor Hamilton, help us out here. You have such knowledge. How are these market conditions affecting first-time homebuyers, especially young families and communities of color in cities like Atlanta?
Thank you, Congressman. The number one ingredient to purchase a home is capital. If there's a shortage of workers, the number one ingredient to attract more workers is wages. So we have a problem of asymmetries in both power and capital. That's what we need at a high level. We need a redirection of public investments to redress that asymmetry. We need to be able to offer residents of Atlanta a capital foundation if they want to get in order to get into a home, which, as you eloquently pointed out, provides a great deal of other amenities beyond the living in the home itself. It becomes a capital foundation for economic agency.
Okay, I got a minute and a half. What steps can we take in this committee, in Congress, to address these labor shortages? Have you talked with our unions in the residential construction industry, which is expected to get worse with aging workforce?
As it relates to the labor market, there are a variety of things that one could do. The first thing I would say is facilitate the economic right to collectively bargain. Facilitate the capabilities of workers to bargain in unity against some of the asymmetries, again, with regards to power. There are other mechanisms as well. We can instill a minimum wage. We see the evidence that, the rhetoric is that a minimum wage will lead to job loss. Well, we've had countless studies that have shown that there's plenty of slack by which we can raise the floor on wages for Americans to ensure that they get decent pay.
Well, let's deal with things like zoning reform. How important is that? And local federal coordination in expanding this supply of housing?
Well,
Atlanta is one of the fastest growing, most dynamic areas we got. But this is our number one issue right now. We're either going to survive and swim, or we could drown.
Yeah, really quick, smart zoning is important and useful, but trying to make sure that those residents
Gentleman's time has expired.
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
Chairman.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chairman of the full committee.
Housing affordability is no longer a future problem. It's here, and in cities like Atlanta, it's becoming the defining economic issue of the next decade. When Congressman David Scott raised the alarm, he wasn't exaggerating. Families are being priced out. Young professionals can't enter the market. Communities of color who historically rely on homeownership to build generational wealth are falling further behind. So what's actually happening? First, supply. Over the last 7 years, Atlanta's construction workforce has shrunk, particularly among prime working age adults. At the same time, nationally, we're short hundreds of thousands of construction workers annually. Fewer workers mean slower builds. Slower builds mean tighter supply. And tight supply means higher prices second. Cost labor shortages push wages up. Materials remain volatile. Land is expensive. Regulatory hurdles slow projects down. Every one of those factors gets baked into the final price of a home. Third, investor activity. According to regional surveys, many residents believe large investors buying up single-family homes are contributing to affordability problems. When homes are purchased in bulk and converted into rental properties, it reduces inventory for first-time buyers. Now, here's where the debate gets serious. The expert testimony pointed to what he called asymmetries of power and capital. In plain English, the people trying to buy homes don't have enough capital. The workers building homes don't have enough leverage. And the market isn't correcting itself. One proposed solution: strengthen collective bargaining and raise wages. The argument is simple. If construction workers are paid more, more people will enter the field, easing labor shortages and increasing supply. But critics ask, does raising wages increase construction costs even more in the short term? And if it does, who absorbs that cost, builders or buyers? Then there's zoning reform. Local rules often restrict density, slow approvals, and limit where housing can be built. Smart zoning, as it was described, could expand supply without waiting years for market forces to adjust. But zoning is politically explosive. Neighborhood resistance is real. Local governments guard control fiercely, and federal coordination only goes so far. So what are we left with? A housing market squeezed from every direction, not enough workers rising, wages and material costs, limited land investor competition, regulatory bottlenecks. And for first-time buyers, especially younger families, the biggest obstacle remains capital. Down payments are harder to save when rent is high. Credit standards remain tight. Meanwhile, home prices outpace wage growth. The deeper issue here is this: housing isn't just shelter. It's a foundation of middle-class stability. It's how families build equity. It's how wealth is passed down. When that ladder gets pulled up, inequality widens. Atlanta is one of the fastest growing metro areas in the country. If it can't solve this, what does that mean for everywhere else? The political question now is whether Congress focuses on supply-side solutions, more construction, workforce development, zoning flexibility, or demand-side relief like subsidies and buyer assistance. Because without structural change, the math doesn't work. If supply doesn't increase meaningfully, and if capital remains concentrated at the top, homeownership will increasingly become something inherited, not earned. And that's a fundamental shift in the American promise. The warning from this hearing wasn't partisan. It was practical. Either we expand supply, strengthen the workforce, and address capital gaps, or cities like Atlanta risk pricing out the very families that fuel their growth. And once that happens, rebuilding opportunity becomes far harder than building homes.